Hello ladies and gents, evolution of German army uniforms animated history by the channel The Armchair Historian. Now I don't know if he's going to talk about the recent German unified country like Republic of Germany like we know right now, or he's going to talk about the old German states like Prussia, Austria, Saxony, things like that. But if he's going to talk about the old like 18th, 19th century states, I think one thing I've seen in the German uniforms is that they have these spikes on their helmets and some kind of emblem like eagle or something. I'm not so sure about the emblem. I've seen that, but I'm not so sure if it's a standard. It was just in one point of time. But I'm pretty sure about the spike on the helmet. I think that distinguishes the German soldier from anybody else. So if you see a German soldier from the distance, that's how you identify, like they have spikes on the helmets. And their officers usually have, I think, gray or dark blue type of uniform. I think it was gray. I've seen dark blue, but I can't be sure about that. So that somehow distinguishes an officer from your normal soldiers. And they have these daggers and German pistols on them that kind of distinguish them. In World War I, there was Stahlhelm helmets. Am I pronouncing it right? I don't know. Stahlhelm helmets. And after that, World War II, and after that, there was some variants of that too. So Stahlhelm helmets are kind of, unique features of German uniforms. After World War I, there was, mostly, not just Germany, but most countries are like, this green olive type of uniforms. That kind of was a common thing because it kind of blends you in. That kind of makes sense, and it depends on the condition. If it's winter time, it's usually white type of camouflage uniforms, and if it's desert camo, things like that in Africa and things like that. So it was mostly that. In weapons, it's mostly Mauser rifles. I think HNK G3, and after World War II, in 90s. HNK G36, everybody knows that was one of the key features of the German infantry. So yeah, this is what I know, but let's see what details Armchair Historian has in this video.
Before we start the video, I'd like to take a moment to discuss today's sponsor, Squarespace. Given the impact of quarantine on our daily lives, it's more important than ever to market yourself effectively online. Luckily, Squarespace has all the tools you need to construct a website or domain and market it to a specific audience. Keep watching until the end of this video to learn about an offer Squarespace has just for fans of the Armchair Historian, and don't forget to use the link down below to support the channel. In 1871, the Kingdom of Prussia, along with many German states such as Baden, Bavaria, and Württemberg, fights a war for unification against...
There you go, see? I knew I saw it some videos. I don't know which videos. I think I've seen. There you go. Spike helmets and emblem of eagle. I think after this, lots of uniform has some variants of eagle, even though Hitler's army had this eagle emblem on them. So they used lots of eagle emblems and this spike on the helmets at the early times.
The Second French Empire. The many culturally distinct kingdoms, duchies, and principalities, whose only commonality is language, for the most part, form into a single nation-state, the German Empire. By the end, Paris is surrounded, and Napoleon III is captured. Embracing the military aesthetics of the period, including brightly colored uniforms, the most iconic feature of this era in German military history is the Pickelhaube, or pointed helmet. The helmet is actually one of the first pieces of modular gear issued to soldiers en masse, with the spike being attached via a screw thread that makes it easy to remove and replace with other decorations signifying different ranks or positions.
What's the reasoning behind the spike though? Did they thought if there is some kind of a melee combat there, they can just like a bull just go head through or something like that? Or is it just aesthetic? I don't know, man.
Given the size of the German Confederation before unification, many different firearms are in use, such as the Prussian breech-loading Drese needle gun, the Bavarian Portewilz gun, the Saxon Jägerbücher M1865, and many others. But the ambitions of Germany in the 19th century extend far beyond the shores of Europe. A single glance at the German colonial uniforms immediately shows a much greater commitment to practicality.
Yeah, this is the case with all countries, I think. Whenever they're in desert type areas in Africa, they always have this desert camo. This is not a camo, just the tan uniform. But later years, they had this desert camo uniforms, all countries.
Over style, with drab colors and simple designs featuring minimal decoration to distinguish officers from enlisted men. The expensive Pickelhaube is often replaced by a slouch hat with a prominent cockade, while practical additions such as bandoliers and adjustable pouches are much more common sights. Like other colonial powers, Germany makes extensive use of native levies known as askaris. These men wear even simpler uniforms made of khaki, in contrast to the more expensive corduroy worn by German troops stationed in the colonies. Officers who could actually afford to have their clothes laundered on a regular basis still wear more elaborate outfits made of white or gray wool.
There you go. So it's gray, not dark blue. I thought I saw dark blue somewhere, but apparently I'm wrong. So officers use this gray outfit.
Decorative piping on the wrists to distinguish themselves from the common soldiers. Lastly, the German troops operating in East Asia wear khaki uniforms that are adopted from several other designs and recolored to help men deal with local.
How is that khaki? I don't think this is the uniform in conditions like this, it sticks out. You're not supposed to stick out. So I don't know if this is the right color for this kind of environment.
Local temperatures. As we move into the Great War, we immediately see a reduction in flamboyant decorations and bright eye-catching colors such as blue and green.
There you go, World War I. Like I said, olive or green olive, things like that. So, so dull green colors.
Pickelhaube remains standard issue until 1916, but the leather construction is simplified to
Then I think Stahlhelms come,
which simultaneously gives better resistance to shrapnel and other hazards. Within just a few months, the need to simplify uniforms for mass production has completely overtaken even the most long-established army traditions, and there is little to distinguish the officers besides a few details. The Pickelhaube is still worn during ceremonial occasions, but most officers prefer simple caps known as Feldmütze. During 1916, a new, simpler, all-metal helmet known as the Stahlhelm starts to replace the Pickelhaube as the standard infantry headgear. Meanwhile, the Gewehr 98 has become the standard issue rifle, a bolt-action design that would remain in service until 1935, at which point it is replaced by the Karabiner 98K. The next year will see the issuing of canister gas masks, which limits the effects of chemical warfare, and the Stielhandgranate will make.
How much this gas mask works though, because I was seeing the details, like these gas masks were mostly like, it barely worked, man. This was most like, it's better than nothing kind of things. So this time around they had lots of these gas attacks and people like, what the hell is that? Because they've never seen things like that. Gas attacks, chemical attacks, like what the hell is that? So after not just that, in the horror of all that, they give you this mask and then most time they don't even work. It's just horrid, man.
Its first appearance. Also of note is the MP-18, carried by the Sturmtruppen. This is one of the first submachine guns issued to troops in large numbers. But after its defeat in the First World War, this is what the German army looked like. Well, besides for the 100,000 soldiers, down from the 1.9 million in the First World War that they were allowed to keep for defense purposes. These men were part of the Reichswehr, or Realm Defense Force, and their uniforms are as basic as you might expect. By now, the Stahlhelm has completely replaced the Pickelhaube, and apart from minor visual modifications, it will remain in common use until 1992.
Yeah.
The German rearmament programs of the
version of Stahlhelm will remain until 92, and I think 92 after that we're gonna see that modernized helmets of Kevlar mechs and things like that we see today.
1930s give birth to a slew of new uniforms representing the many different branches of the revitalized Wehrmacht. While the simple designs used by the Reichswehr are retained in some capacity, branches like the Fallschirmjäger paratroopers and the Waffen-SS get specialized designs, reflecting their status as elite units. Given the global nature of the Second World War, two men fulfilling the exact same duties might be wearing completely different uniforms depending on where they're stationed. For example, Erwin Rommel's famous Afrika Korps wear light tan or green overalls that help them blend.
Damn. He's just walking around with machine gun like it's nothing. MG42.
Into desert environments and prevent men from dying of heat stroke while weighed down with heavy kit. Speaking of heavy kit, the MG42 also strikes terror into the hearts of its enemies.
Also strike terror, damn. Anybody who fought at that year, this was a new introduced weapon. And every time that weapon, heavy shell, but fast sound, that's just... I can't process that, man. I've heard some real guns like magnums and things like that. I've heard some carbine. This is India. We don't see many weapons, but I've seen some, military. I have some relations with some people who are soldiers and in military. So I've heard in the camps. I've been to the camps where some weapons are old weapons, old rifles, which are kind of loud. But I've never seen something like machine guns in live. But I'm pretty sure it would be extremely loud. And I've seen in the whatever weapons I've seen, as the calibers go up, the loudness, and not just loudness, the thickness of loudness goes up. So MG42 just selling out that many high caliber weapons is just... The sound would be extraordinary. Like you walk up through that dust, mud, you don't know what's happening. Suddenly you hear that massive caliber machine gun fire. You're like, what the hell? I'm done. Because this is not a game. It's not some video game. It's a real life, and you just hear a machine gun. That's like, if you don't have a proper plan how to counter that, you're just effed. You can't go past that. You're screwed. So this MG42 gave lots of people nightmare.
Quickly becoming one of the most instantly recognizable weapons of the war, both from its design and distinctive sound. In contrast to those fighting in Libya and Egypt, men stationed on the Eastern Front pack on as many layers as possible.
Eastern Front white uniform, that makes sense. Mostly it's always camouflage. Camouflage is going to work because you have to hide. You can't just stick out because people have rifles. They're long distance. We've seen in World War II and lots of places where there are, even though sniper weapons are not that advanced, just simple rifles with not much of scope on them, but there were still people who were killing in long distances. There were sharpshooters like that. So you have to have camouflage, man.
To avoid the terrible cold of the Russian winter. By now, camouflage patterns are becoming more and more common, especially among elite units like the SS Panzergrenadiers. The Germans also use a huge array of weapons, from the basic Karabiner 98K used by most infantrymen to the MP40 machine pistol used by non-commissioned commissioned officers, and specialists. Following the disaster in the East that resulted in the annihilation of Army Group Center, the German...
Look at him. He's just carrying that anti-tank grenade. That's just... damn.
Army begins fielding a new type of soldier, the Volksgrenadier. Although often confused with the Volkssturm militia, these are professional soldiers drawn from various branches of the Wehrmacht, or called back into service after being discharged due to injury. At this late stage of the war, they are often equipped with automatic weapons like the Sturmgewehr 44 and disposable anti-tank weapons such as the Panzerfaust. It would also be criminal not to mention the iconic...
there you go. I knew it. There's the dark blue uniform. I knew I saw it somewhere. It's dark blue uniform. There you go.
Produced by the Hugo
SS
Boss
officer.
Company. It is a common misconception that Boss himself designed them, but in fact he is only the producer. The true designer
Hugo
of the
Boss
uniform
made it, okay.
and most other SS regalia is an artist called Karl Diebitsch, who is also a member of the organization. After the defeat of Germany in the Second World War, the country was divided between the Western Allies and the Soviet Union and was
there's that HNK G3.
demilitarized until 1954. But after West Germany joined NATO, they were allowed to create the Bundeswehr, a citizens' army, whose simple uniforms are designed to emphasize their duty as defenders of the new German democracy. Naturally, these new uniforms are purposefully created to bear no resemblance to Nazi iconography, and even the Stahlhelm is redesigned to look less like the version worn by the Wehrmacht infantry. Their equipment remains mostly German-manufactured, however, with the Heckler & Koch G3 becoming the standard-issue battle rifle in 1959. East Germany...
I think that's an overkill, because if they were just there to defend a city, I mean, G3 is a proper battle rifle. That's just, proper, powerful, big caliber, let's just say it's really powerful weapon. So you use that in all-out war. You don't just use to defend a city, I think. I don't know, that in maybe the conditions were too heavy at that time, so it was like a war, who knows. But G3 is a proper battle rifle. It wasn't as accurate as M1, but it's really powerful.
Also has its own military, known as the National Volksarmee, or National People's Army. Armed and equipped by the Soviets, the NVA is regarded by many officers in NATO as a highly effective and well-trained fighting force. Unlike the Bundeswehr, the NVA uniform is surprisingly similar to that of the old Wehrmacht, featuring similar colors and materials. Even the helmet is based on a Nazi prototype of the Stahlhelm that was not adopted during the war. Their arsenal also consists of an eclectic mixture of Wehrmacht and Soviet firearms, such as the Kar-98K and the Mosin Nagant. By the 1960s, these are mostly replaced by licensed copies of the classic Soviet AK, usually the AK-74 or AKM variants. Following the reunification of Germany in 1990, the NVA is integrated.
There you go. That's your modern version of the, proper, I think, Kevlars and G36, HNK G36 current weapon. This is more modernized.
Into the Bundeswehr, and their old uniforms are discarded in favor of modern combat fatigues decorated with fleck-tarn camouflage patterns. In 1997, the venerable G3 is replaced with the much more modern G36, again made by Heckler & Koch. The 90s also saw the complete replacement of the Stahlhelm with the Gefechtshelm M92, made out of high-durability synthetic composites. With modern wars increasingly taking place in desert environments, the Bundeswehr are often seen wearing desert pattern camouflage and various accessories designed to make...
That's the case in any time. If you're a desert or some ice area, it's just dependent on the situation. In Afghanistan, Africa, most of places, it's gonna be desert camo.
Life easier in hot, arid environments such as in Afghanistan. Protective goggles are frequently used, as are face masks and balaclavas. Now that our list is complete, let's return to our sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an ideal online resource for anyone looking to build a website.
Yeah, people, go to squarespace.com/armchairhistorian and go support that channel. Armchair Historian makes great content, so make sure to support it. So yeah, after First World War, it's mostly just green, olive green, dull green, that kind of uniforms. Before that, it was kind of flamboyant, like strong colors. But the helmets are always, the unique features of German's army. You can see that was the difference by just looking at the helmets. And obviously later HNK weapons. And obviously in deserts, things like that, you're going to have a desert camo because people have battle rifles that can shoot at distance. They can just look you from the distance, just kill you. So you have to, blend in. So whether it's ice, it's going to be white. If it's, some desert area, it's going to be desert camo. So yeah, kind of makes sense. I thought he's just gonna cover the latest German army, but I think Prussian, he covered all that too. So yeah, alright. If you like my reaction, please don't forget to like and subscribe.